Hello and welcome back to Serendipity Intended. My name is Tracy Ann and I am so glad that you are here. I am here today to share my completed Februllage journal. I only did a couple of process videos for this journal for really one big reason, that being that I had intended to do this challenge in February and kind of film as I went along, and life went pretty crazy after about the second or third day of the month. And after just a few pages, I ended up setting the journal aside and really didn't pick it up until well into March. And I did the majority of the journal in April when I was on spring break from school. So I figured the best way for me to work in the journal was to take away the pressure of needing to film and edit and post. So that has meant that I haven't posted a lot, but what it has meant is that I've been a little true to myself and what I need, and ultimately, I think that's the best thing and what's really important. So, without further ado, let's talk a little bit about the challenge and what that was about, the journal, and then we'll jump into the prompts themselves. So again, the challenge is called Februllage, and I chose this challenge because a lot of the layouts that I had seen in response to this challenge were true collage, like pictorial collage, I guess I would call it. And I kind of wanted to play with that a little bit. I definitely do a ton of collage in my journals, but it really tends to be more using pieces of paper just to create a nice background. And so I wanted to play with a little bit more sort of true collage. And so I had these journals, and first thing I needed to find something to do the prompt in. My February journal needed to be a separate journal. I had done a junk journal January challenge for January, and I did it actually in my daily journal. And while I loved that every day in my journal had really interesting pages, it created so much bulk, and I knew that I couldn't sustain that for an entire year and still be able to manage the journal. So I decided I wanted to use a separate journal for the challenge. I had this one, and it was I did not make it. It was originally created as a travel journal. I ordered it because I liked the shape, and at the time I was looking for a journal to use for a vacation journal, and I thought perhaps it could work. But when I got it, I just decided it was not right for what I wanted to do with my vacation, and I sat it on the shelf, and it's sat there for probably 2 or 3 years. So when I was looking for a journal, I thought, well, this is the perfect time to repurpose this travel journal. So I liked the grid and the Paris sticker on the back. I covered over, I think there was something that said travel here, so I just tore this out of an old calendar and put it on there for February. And then I don't know, I was feeling a little bit whimsical and decided that I would add some Alice in Wonderland characters to the front of the journal. And then this sort of pair of scissors, kind of in that kind of collage theme, that it's almost like the scissors become his sword. And then, I don't know, I thought it was sort of fun to put the white rabbit on his side, and then this little bit of text from a copy of Alice in Wonderland. So I thought, okay, well, let me kind of play in this journal and collage with sort of a little bit of a Alice in Wonderland theme, a little bit of wonder, a little bit of strangeness, and maybe a little bit of wit. And I decided to leave this definition card here because I thought the idea of taking a journey was appropriate for this journal, because for me this was a little bit of a creative journey. So that was kind of my thought with the journal itself. And my very first page in terms of setting up the journal, I did do a video on this, was to just put the challenge prompts in at the beginning so that I could have them. I added this whimsy and wonder quote because it sort of was the, I guess, theme for my journal. And then I did end up making a little journal card to kind of talk about my journal challenge, and that I really wanted to get into journaling and then kind of stopped. And also just sort of noting that that's okay. It's okay that I stopped and I restarted. The point is I definitely enjoyed myself. And so I really thought that the journey is the destination was absolutely appropriate. It was completely true for this challenge. And I thought it was also a nice tie-in to the travel journal theme that I originally started with. So what I thought I would do is, I don't know how long this video is going to end up being. So as I'm filming this right now, I don't want it to be super long. So I'm thinking that I might just do the first 7 prompts and then maybe do another video with 7 more prompts. And so ultimately end up with 4 videos, 1 for each week of the challenge. So that's what I'm going to do. I've got my card here to keep me straight with what was what. I started out in order. I ended up not being completely in order, and so we'll jump around as need be. Okay, so I kind of already talked about this page in another video. I'm not going to spend any more time on it. I'm just going to go ahead and jump to the first 2 pages. So I did want to point out before I got any further, I did on each page, somewhere on the page, put a little first, second, third indicator with my Dynamo label maker, so that I would know which prompt that page was responding to, but so that I didn't necessarily have to put the prompt on the page. So this first prompt was boom, and what I had the idea was that I could take Alice and that flowers would be exploding out of her crown, and that would be the boom. And I thought it was kind of fun to then take the word boom and sort of insert an L in there for the text on the page and end up with bloom. So it's I guess it's a bloom boom. And then I used a magazine photograph of an actual place so I could have her standing on a rock. It's not exactly what I had in mind. It doesn't really look as much like a boom as I wanted it to, but it generally worked out, and I do love the way that the colors ended up working together, and that really makes me very, very happy. So the second prompt was toast. And I have to admit, at first, this brought me to a screeching halt because I was stuck on toast as in bread that you put in a toaster. And I didn't have an image of toast, and I didn't really want to spend time looking for an image of toast. And so I just stopped for quite a bit, maybe a week or 2 in February. And then I thought to myself, well, a toast could also be like a toast, like cheers. And so then I remembered that I had this bit that I had cut out of a magazine, and I thought, okay, well, that's absolutely perfect. And so I started with that, and I also had this is actually, it looks like a wax seal, but it's actually a metal top for a bottle of wine. It was what was left over after I unscrewed the wine. And so I thought it sort of fit with the toasting theme. And then this was a strip from this image, and I thought it complemented the colors that I had going on here, but then also made this page kind of make sense with the opposite page. And then I added this other little bit of, I think this is a digital, the background here, so this map of Niagara and this other piece were on the original journal, again with the travel theme. So I really thought that the red in this wine label worked nicely with the red in the magazine image. So it was pretty simple, actually. Once I got myself unstuck, it was pretty simple to put this page together, and I'm super satisfied with the way that it turned out. So our next prompt was ballet, and I have actually been itching to do some paper dolls, and I thought, well, that's sort of a collage-y kind of thing too. And so I took a inspiration board that I had done, and I cut it to the size of the page because it was already collaged, and then I made a paper doll ballerina to go on top of that, and I put her on. She's on point on a clock, and I thought it would be fun to have some other circle images there in the negative so that you could see a bit more of the collage behind. And so that was my take on the third prompt, which was ballet. I've only ever made one masterboard in my life. This is a piece of that. I have a little bit of the masterboard left right here. So I haven't quite finished with it. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it yet. But I was really happy that I had the masterboard because a lot of the collage work that I needed to do was already done. And I did actually all three of these, well, actually this one and this one, in pretty close succession. I was a little bit behind. I had an idea for this one. And then I got to the prompt for day 4, which was broccoli. And I absolutely came to a screeching halt. And I don't think I did anything with this journal for the rest of the month of February because I just could not think of what to do with broccoli. And then sometime the beginning of March, I had a little bit of time and I really needed just to be in my space. And so I thought, okay, let me think a little bit differently about broccoli. Maybe don't take it so literally. And I got to thinking about the colors in broccoli and how the range of greens that you find in a broccoli plant. And that inspired this background in a range of greens, sort of reminiscent of greens that you would see in broccoli. So I created the background, and then I found this floral digital that I had, and I thought it popped, the red popped really nicely against the green. And I also loved the way that the leaves added a little bit of a darker green. And I did also include a little bit of torn, I think this is scrapbook paper, and a piece of washi in there to get a little bit more darker green, and just to create something behind the flower so it wasn't floating. And then one little piece of white paper just for some contrast to help the focal image pop. And I thought the "do what you love" ended up being a perfect quote for this day 4 prompt. I'm really glad that I waited until I had something that inspired me, because I'm really satisfied with the way that this page turned out. Now the next prompt was star, and again another screeching halt. I think I was putting way too much pressure on myself, and I, again, couldn't think of what I was going to do, and I really didn't want to do a literal star. And so again, kind of pondered and finally came up with the idea of just trying to work in as many stars in the collage as I possibly could. So I had this piece of blue tissue paper, and I thought the gold sort of looked like stars. And I had a star stamp that I used to stamp in the background. And then I used some, this is distress ink, that I thought kind of worked with this blue color. And then I found her and I thought, well, she's lovely. She sort of looks a little bit like an old time movie star. So I added her, and then, a little bit of a feather just for some zhuzh for her. And so that was Star. And then the prompt also, or not the prompt, the quote also kind of comes from that: shine like the whole universe is yours. And I thought that fit her, but I also felt like it fit the prompt of Star. Now, interestingly, once I had that one done, I had an idea for prompt number 6, which was jellyfish. And I had this sticker in one of my sticker books, and I think it is some kind of jellyfish or jellyfish adjacent creature. And I knew that I wanted to use it. And what I ended up doing was collaging a little bit of a sort of mixed media background with some tissue paper and some darker tissue paper and a little bit of distress ink on top of the digital that was already there to sort of give a watery sort of look to the page. And this sort of is like seaweed, the darker strips. And then to make the pink make a little more sense, I punched out some circles to be like bubbles. And then this was actually all from a scrapbook paper, and it had this block on it. So I cut it out and used that to sort of ground the whole thing. And again, I was super happy. This is not something that I typically do, but I think it's visually really interesting, and it was very satisfying. And again, I thought, see possibility everywhere, even on a digital page that I really didn't think I was going to like. Was definitely a possibility that I found and went with, and it ended up really inspiring one of my favorite pages in this journal. And then the last page is a 2-page spread. So this was day 7, and I was feeling a little silly. I did not like the background, and I wanted to cover it up. The prompt was rain, and I got this idea of let a smile be your umbrella because I had these Tweedledee and Tweedledum from Alice in Wonderland, and they just looked so grumpy, and I couldn't get that idea out of my mind, so I decided to go with that. I collaged some book papers or book pages onto the background to cover up what was there, and then painted a light wash over top just to push the text into the background. And then I did some mark making just with some black acrylic paint to sort of be reminiscent of raindrops. And then I found a smile online and printed it on my printer, turned it upside down, and made it into an umbrella. So they're literally letting a smile be their umbrella. And then I used some ransom stickers that I had. I got this book from my husband as a Christmas present, and I thought the ransom note colors worked really well with the colors in the umbrella and the Tweedledum and Tweedledee. And so I put those together. And then I thought it would be kind of fun. I needed something really black to balance out the raindrops. So I used the dynamo to make part of the quote. And then I highlighted the 2 words that were in the ransom letters with some distress crayon. And ended up with a page that's a little bit silly, a little bit whimsical, but kind of keeping with my goal that I had for the journal. And to be really honest, then I largely got stuck again. And I did not pick up this journal again until my spring break started at the beginning of April. So I think this might be a really good place to stop with this particular video, and I hope that you enjoyed the first little bit and that you will join me for the other videos, and that maybe my story has inspired you to not give up and not get frustrated when you run into a roadblock, but just give yourself some time to get unstuck, revisit, maybe step back and rethink, and see what happens next. Thank you so much for joining me, and until next time, I hope that you make a really great day.